Did you know that you have the ability to create in the messy middle? I'm talking about the messy part of your situation right now where things aren't quite perfect or the way that you want to, but yet God is still moving through you and in you in the meantime. Let's talk about it. By the way, I'm Jessica Harris. I am the founder of Ignite Your Glow, which is this beautiful broadcast here, as well as a multimedia platform created for women just like you who are faith centered and ready to amplify their voices as they begin to shift gears into their very purpose and calling. As we go forth today, we're going to be talking about how God is able to utilize any situation that you're going through, the circumstances and all, to bring forth His positioning for you. And not only to really glorify you at all, but more so to glorify Him, to showcase His strength, His power, and His ability to be brilliant through you and all of your endeavors. So let's get to it. By the way, if you're going to be in the Windsor Locks area on May 2nd, we want to invite you to come out to our In May We Bloom workshop. It is going to be an event that's dedicated for mothers and daughters from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And this event is going to be a journaling experience where you're going to be able to go through your healing process as well as learn healthy coping skills and learn the significance of rooting your identity and core values in God. So this way you can see yourself the way that God sees you through a biblical lens. Now, on to today's conversation. What exactly is the messy middle? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've been on journeys of faith when it comes to walking through the wilderness. I've been in journeys of transition. I've been in journeys of going from being at work, being a stay-at-home mom. I've been in journeys of learning about entrepreneurship and honestly, so much, right, over the last 5 years. But one of the biggest things that I've learned is that regardless of where I was in the middle of my journey, there was always a positioning that God was leading me to that would help me to be able to shape my mind, to shape the way that I saw life, and also to help other people see a better version of themselves. Every single season that I've ever been in, my life didn't always feel perfect, look perfect, feel perfect at all, but somehow, some way, He was always utilizing me. We always would have conversations with other women, right, who were also in similar predicaments. Or maybe they were women that have been where I used to be, right? Maybe they were women who were walking into a season where they were learning their identity in Christ again. Or maybe they were learning more so to trust and what God had placed on the inside of them. And I remember just always being led to share different pieces of my own experiences, not so much to gloat or anything of that nature, but honestly, just to really walk in the revelation that God is able to utilize any experience for His good. And that's truly the mercies that I'm able to witness every day. You see, in Romans 8:28, He reminds us that all things, right, come together for the good of those that love the Lord, that are called according to His purpose. And when we're able to navigate challenges, when we're able to navigate obstacles, different life experiences, we no longer look at those experiences as something that is filled with blame and shame or guilt. But instead, when we transition over to the other side of it, we now realize that there were lessons learned. We now realize that we are now responsible for stewarding that testimony to then be able to share with other people so they too now have the ability to overcome. I remember a verse in the Bible that talks about how God is the one who comforts us. But not only is He the one that comforts us, but He also now calls us to be comforters unto other people, right? He allows us to go through certain situations and seasons so that we can now take on that idea, that example for other people. So when we go into different territories, different areas, right? Different seasons, different homes, it could even be different atmospheres, right, of influence. Because remember, there's a seven mountains of influence, right? Whether it's education, business, government, family, right? All the things in between. But he allows us to be able to do this part so that people can really be reignited in their purpose and in their calling. Because let's get honest, right? If you've been walking a certain path or doing something, the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes rusty at some point. It becomes a little dry. It kind of feels like, kind of mundane. It's the same old task over and over. And there's not really the same fire that was there when you first started it. There's something powerful about being able to be reintroduced into a new version of yourself, whether it's watching a person who is walking out what you hope to, or whether it's watching a person where you used to be and now envisioning, wow, just how far you've been able to come in the years or time frame that it's been for you. There's something powerful about being able to watch the fluidity of movement because when you take your eyes off of the areas that you feel are quote unquote stuck or quote unquote stagnant, you actually begin to realize that there's been a river flowing the entire time. And maybe the river wasn't going in the direction that you assumed it was going in, but maybe it was spearing in different places because God was opening up multiple rooms for you to be able to access at the same time. There's so much pleasure I'm gonna say I've had in really being able to repossess, right? The purpose that God placed inside of me. There's been this pleasure of really being able to take on by storm, in a sense, this new identity for me, especially in the idea of motherhood. Because as a mom, you want to walk, different places and stages with your kids. You want to be able to be there for them with sports and activities and all these things. But at some point in the journey of motherhood, I know for me, I had this experience. I became essentially so emboggled by all the stuff that I did, the roles, not only as a mom, but then as a girlfriend and all these pieces, that it felt like I lost a part of me. And I know I'm not the only one because I've heard a lot of women where they get to becoming this mom. And then now is there this struggle that happens with their own identity. And I feel like a lot of that is the fact that as human beings, especially as women, we are multifaceted, meaning that we have multiple layers, multiple gifts, and we have this ideas that it has to look a certain way because that's the societal norms of a woman of this stature or this status or this culture moves in this type of manner, not recognizing that the God that we serve is so big, so mighty, and creative and loving towards us that He will give us not only the gifts, the ideas, the talents, but He'll give us the capacity to be able to steward it as such and still be present for the very kids that He's given us to steward over as well. And I thank God for that because I do believe that there's seasons where life gets so busy that we kind of have this like focus in on this one area, not recognizing that there's so many areas that God wants to really move apart for us to show us what it is that He wants to do with us. And when we get into that place, when we get into that phase of the journey, when we're in that, we already said the messy middle, then we recognize that the value of what we've been through, our experiences, weren't there to take us off course. But really, they've now allowed us to be realigned. They've now allowed us to be refined. And a lot of those experiences have also been course corrected. Sometimes we go through things based on choices, decisions that we made. Sometimes we experience things based on habits that we've had. And sometimes we simply are still learning. But the beauty I find in the process of still learning is that God can still use you. God never tells us, like in the word, that you must be a finished, complete product before He can do something with you. Because if that was the case, we would never get used in any capacity, right? Look at the Bible, look at the disciples. Everybody had some type of flaw, and yet God still used them and still called them. And even Jeremiah 1:5, right? One of my favorite scriptures, it reminds us that He knew you before you was ever formed in your mother's womb. Meaning that no matter where you are and what's taking place in your life, God is speaking that He already knows everything He needs to know about you because He already knows the steps, the trajectory, the placement, the places, the all the things that encompasses you. He already knows what that's going to look like for you. He knows all the things. So He understands when you move, you begin to see something different happen. That when you move, you begin to see something happen. Even when you choose to stand up, when you see yourself moving gracefully, you begin to recognize the beauty and what He wants to do with you and then also through you. And when you get to that place with the Lord, when you work in the messy middle, you recognize the value of Philippians 1:6, right? Which tells us that He is faithful to complete the good work of which He already started in you. Meaning that what He already started, He's gonna complete it. That's why He can look to you and say, go start up that business or that ministry, go start up that event, go start up that nonprofit. because he already knows what he placed on the inside of you. He already knows the people that he wants you to connect with and to meet in the process. None of it is new. None of it is just so happen to happen in the moment. Like nothing is quote unquote happy stance is the way that I'll word it as. But when we walk in his divine flow, we're able to then meet divine favor. When we're walking in divine flow, we're able then to meet the pieces, right, of those that he wants us to come into communion with, or excuse me, not communion with necessarily, but those that he wants us to come, into partnerships with. And I believe there's something practical, right, about how we step, how we move, what we do, what we say, right? Because no longer are we walking in striving for something and trying to put in all this extreme muscle in, but now we're catching a rhythm that he has already predestined for us because he's stating, like, listen, I already know the plan that I want you to walk in. I already know the things. But because we've lived our own lives according to our own standards, our own accords, maybe we had some areas that had to be, redirected, course corrected. Because let's be honest, right? Some of us have started on one path and they got shifted and shifted and shifted. And now God's like, and now I'm bringing you back to where you need to go. Because now where you are, although it feels messy, right? Although it feels kind of like, Lord, what's happening here? It's a place where there's grace, right? Because grace has found you. And when grace has found you in that messy middle, it may look one way, it may feel one way initially, but then you begin to recognize that actually God is trying to use it. God is trying to move the pieces in you through it because He knows that you're capable of getting through. Because what you've been through has now allowed you to instill a certainty of who God is in your life, and that faith will cause you to resist the urge of going backwards because you recognize the new thing that is happening before you. When you're in the messy middle, it's not the place for you to give up. It's not the place for you to say, I'm throwing in the towel, but it is the place for you to surrender. It is the place where you say, God, I am consecrating myself for your purpose because I know that I'm called to walk in your image. Because now you understand that what you've been doing, how you've been living, maybe it wasn't exactly what lane he wanted you to be in, but now it's coming together. And now the pieces are being drawn out. And now the blueprint is able to emerge differently because now what you was trying to figure out why it wasn't working and why certain things wasn't moving or flowing, now it's able to come out almost crystal clear, like, oh my gosh, that's what this was, Lord. Why? Because when you're able to work through the messy middle, you're not working with a God who isn't sure of how the outcome will look like. You're not working with a God who isn't sure if you're equipped or able to get through or even to overcome this. You're not working with a God that's going to allow you to be so overwhelmed by the situation that it takes you out. No, you're working with a God who has strategy. You're working with a God that can literally pull you out in a moment if He chose to. You're working with a God that sees your weak areas and knows how to strengthen them, just like a trainer does at a gym, right? A trainer sees your muscles, knows your points, knows what needs to be done, knows just how much of a stretch you need in order for you to get the right resistance pulled in to form the muscle, but not enough to tear you down in the process, but just enough to build you up in it. So that's the same thing with the messy middle. It's meant to encourage you, it's meant to empower you, it's meant to instill inside of you the values that you need within your belief systems, within the Lord, and about yourself. So when you do step into the word, when you do step into the world, when you do step into the workforce, when you do step into business, when you do step into ministry, when you do step into leadership, you are no longer doing it on your own strength. You are no longer doing it on your own accord, but you're doing it on the basis that God is already with you, keeping you, equipping you, and pouring everything back into you. And because He's doing that, you now have the ability to walk as an example that it is possible. Think about how many people, right, who are famous currently, or not even necessarily famous, but those who have made a name for themselves. Where did they start? Did it start good or did they start messy? Did they start having a lot or did they start having nothing at all? A lot of people who are great successes right now started from nothing, came from nothing, but had a solution in mind about a problem they saw. And because they saw it, they worked at it to get there. We are able to work off of the backs of those that went before us, people that laid out a different foundation. Now we're able to stand there. And I believe that God is so loving and so good for us. And not only does He look at their foundation of what was before us, but He makes sure that not only do we stand on that foundation, but that we ourselves internally have a foundation that's rooted inside of Him. So that when we do go up on that pillar, when we do go in that mountain of influence, when we do go into those areas, when we do go into those places, that we're not doing that and being succumb to those roles or worldly things, but that we are able to still be set apart in His image, made for Him, used for His glory, and still being able to do the divine plan that He has called forth from our lives from the beginning of time. We are able to still execute according to His purpose and the will that He has already made in our lives. He tells us right in Ephesians 2:10 that we are His handiwork. When I think of the words handiwork, that tells me that we are God's masterpiece. We are a mold of Him that is handcrafted by His design and purpose for His glory to shine forth in the earth. And I pray that you guys recognize that, that you guys would see that, that you guys would hear that, and that you guys would really allow that to be with you in this season, in this hour, so that you too can move in it and not feel like things aren't working for your good. So that is today's conversation on Ignite Your Glow. And I do have a quick commercial break for you. Hey everybody, it's Jess, and I'm super excited to have this announcement that on May 2nd, we are hosting our very first event called In May We Bloom. And this is for women and daughters to come together to amplify their voices, share their stories, learn coping skills as they heal through our journaling experience. This is going to be from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. and the tickets are on sale. Buy one, get one free. We hope to see you guys there and we welcome you on this journey. All right, you guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. And as always, don't forget to ignite your glow.